Now, I am very privileged to welcome all of our panelists today and our moderator, who is also a dear friend and colleague, Genevieve Trainer. Genevieve. Genevieve has a bio, and I'm going to read it to you, but what I do want to tell you is that I have known Genevieve for many, many years. She is genuine. She is incredibly talented and intelligent. Woo! And she, Chris, this is Chris. You'll get to know him very well. And she's always ready to help. So that's not in her bio, but I feel it really important to say it. All right, Genevieve Trainer is an actor with a market research background that includes 15,000 hours of studying the human journey. Genevieve also works in development and marketing, and she hosts and produces the radio show CinemaScope for KSFR 101 FM and KSFR.org, an NPR affiliate. And she didn't put this in there, but she's also a very talented actress. Please welcome Genevieve Trainer.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, I know we're in a small room, so just making sure. So we have a phenomenal panel. I'm going to call them out one by one. So starting off with executive filmmaker and educator Christopher Lockhart. Woo! He has 30 plus years of industry experience and has read over 60,000 screenplays.
But thank you.
How many people were in the inside pitch a little while ago?
Just everybody
okay, good
put their
amount.
hand up, so
not everybody.
Should move to the next guy.
He's a story editor at talent agency WME, where he's also a creative executive. He curates film and TV projects for A-list actors such as Denzel Washington, if you've heard of this actor. Yeah. Who? As an independent filmmaker, he produced The Collector, The Collection, and the documentary Most Valuable Players for Oprah Winfrey and American Skin. He's also producing the upcoming feature film, or it's in post right now. It's called Solitary with David Oyelowo. And he guides 14,000 screenwriters in his group, The Inside Pitch, which happens to live on Facebook, and we say that intentionally because it is a phenomenal group of screenwriters and actors, and he dedicates a ton of time to helping upcoming screenwriters, rep screenwriters across the board. So it's a great group. He is a member of the Writers Guild of America.
It just doesn't end.
So I know, it just keeps going for all of you.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop,
Yes.
Please stop. Move on.
Well, you can plug your ears if you
Let's
want.
hear about Josh.
Okay. The Producers Guild of America and the Television Academy. And next we have Stu Lions. He is co-executive producer, line producer, director, writer, and a production executive. He works on projects with Netflix, Sony Pictures Television, Warner Brothers, Amazon, Starz, Apple, HBO, FX, AMC, and 3 broadcast networks. He is a production consultant with years of experience. And he has in detailed production analysis, schedules, and/or budgets for over 300 television pilots. Yeah, for television broadcast, cable, and streaming services. He has credits on 600 episodes of television, including 33 series, 29 pilots, 21 of which were ordered to series. He shot 100 episodes in New Mexico. Yes. Yeah. So his most recent projects include The Cleaning Lady, Roswell, New Mexico, Snowfall, and Better Call Saul. He worked on every episode of Breaking Bad, for which he received 2 Emmys and additional awards from the Directors Guild of America and Producers Guild of America, plus 2 Peabody Awards and a Golden Globe. He teaches producing at the graduate level at DePaul University. Great. And we have showrunner, writer, producer, and director Joshua Michael Stern at the end of the panel down here. He often self-generates financing for his projects and offers a unique perspective on how to develop and deliver successful pitches. So he actually just sold a TV pilot he co-wrote with Mark Cherry, who created Desperate Housewives, called Jenny is a Weapon, to Fox Network. And he is out with a pitch with Uma Thurman attached as the lead, so he is in the thick of it with that, yeah. His feature films include Jobs, starring Ashton Kutcher, Josh Gad, and J.K. Simmons, Never Was, starring Aaron Eckhart, Sir Ian McKellen, Jessica Lange, and others, and Disney's Swing Vote, starring Kevin Costner. His series include Lionsgate's Graves, which he created and wrote, and Paramount...
Right here. And also
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has an ongoing series, Paramount Plus, Why Women Kill, which he was executive producer. So good. Yeah. He's in development for a feature film version of King Lear he adopted with Anthony Hopkins. Who's that? I mean, Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. And also we have studio executive and producer Karen Criswell. She's served as a senior vice president of operations for DreamWorks. She ran strategy and operations for the teams behind a slate of interactive games, music development deals, narrative films, and television productions that occurred during your 18-year tenure. So that's a lot of experience. Her time at the studio included 3 Best Picture Oscars for American Beauty, Gladiator, and A Beautiful Mind. Yeah. And she left in 2014 to pursue development of her independent film company, Concept Films, and has provided production, consulting, and creative work in documentary, film, and emerging new media. She now lives in Taos, and she's pursuing, stories from underrepresented voices that provoke positive change with a variety of collaborators, including Black Box and Film Forward. Yeah. And last but not least, in the middle we have Matt McDuffie. He is a screenwriter. He's a screenwriter. He's been a professional screenwriter for 30 years and has written for HBO, Showtime, CBS, Fox, and Warner Brothers, where he currently has a deal to develop a television series, and has worked with producers of 6 Feet Under, Rome, ER, Ocean's 11, Shameless, and Saving Private Ryan. Yeah, he is the writer and director of the film Burning Bodhi, starring Kaylee Cuoco, yeah, and Virginia Madsen, and wrote the screenplay for The Face of Love, starring Annette Bening and Ed Harris, with the film's director, Aaron Posen. He was nominated for a Writers Guild Award for his teleplay of Anne Rule's account of Ted Bundy, The Stranger Beside Me. He also created the story for Lifetime's Odd Girl Out, adapted Meg Wolitzer's Surrender Dorothy for Diane Keaton, and turned the novel A Cool, Dry Place into a film starring Vince Vaughn. For 20 years, he has taught at the University of New Mexico at the Advanced and Introductory Advanced, yes, he's taught introductory, advanced, and graduate levels of screenwriting at the University of New Mexico as a professor of practice. Yeah. So, I don't even know, I mean, I didn't add up the years of experience collectively on this panel, but it sounds like it's about 150 years of experience collectively on the panel. That's incredible. This is 200 years? Yeah. Stu's the numbers guy, so like, you know. Yeah, he's approaching 200. All right, so we have a lot planned for this session. Just a few details on the session format. We're gonna see pitches, which is the best way to learn how to pitch, right? So we have 5 filmmakers who have been selected to pitch their projects for educational purposes for the panel. Feel free to, if you have, and if the audience has questions, we will have time at the end for a Q&A also. So stay tuned for that at the end. So the way this is going to work is each of our finalists, they'll have 3 minutes to pitch their project. 3 minutes. But they've got it down though. They know. Yeah. 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 That's the hot seat if they want that hot seat. They might. Yeah, or they can stand. If you want. Yeah.
Take a deep breath in, you hold it as long as you can, and then you slowly breathe out. Do it a few times, just bring your breath down, your heartbeat down. Just breathe. Don't forget to breathe.
Yes.
You all pass out.
Just all fall asleep. Yeah. All right. So the winning pitch will be announced at tonight's after party at Tractor Brewery Wells Park. That is online at the AFMXNM.com website. If you need directions, that's at 9 p.m. tonight. So please, everybody, show up for that. And I think without further ado, let's get started. So getting back to the 3 minutes that they'll have, the panelists will then weigh in. They may provide adjustments or feedback depending on what they want to do. They'll have 12 minutes to do that. We'll have 15 minutes total per pitch. Sound good? All right. Yeah. She's our timekeeper. Yeah. All right. So yes, let's get this party started. And Deborah, come on up. Okay, so Deborah is going to pitch Blue Oasis, and it's an episodic. Can I stand? Ready when you are. You can do whatever you want over there. And just so the audience knows, sorry, just stop the time really fast. Just so you all know, she may have some of the panels the pitchers may have their back to the audience at some point. It just is what it is in here. It's really important for the panelists to be able to see what Deborah does. But so there will probably be some backs facing the audience, but nonetheless the feedback it'll be very valuable. Awesome for everybody. So
great.
All right, go for it.
Hello. Well, first of all, can I just take 1 second to thank Genevieve and Ivan and Kira and everybody. I don't know if you've been here this week, but this week has been amazeballs. Like, everything I've gone to has been so cool. So I just want to say that first. Okay. Hi. My name is Deborah Prawley, and I would like to share with you my situation comedy, Blue Oasis. So during the 2008 recession, my techie husband was laid off. I was a typical out-of-work actor. And so to distract us, some dear friends said, hey, let's go check out this club outside town called Club Sapphire. It's a swingers club. Yeah, we're 15 years monogamous. Let's go. And we did. And we were shocked, but not in the avert your eyes way, but the sheer conventionality of it. It was run by a married couple. There were people 21 to 71 there, dancing, talking, many of them never going back to the playrooms. It was like Cheers in a sex club where everybody probably knows way more than just your name. And that was the inspiration for Blue Oasis, which centers around a straight and narrow single mom who, after inheriting a swingers club, connects with an eccentric team of employees and club regulars who help her redefine what it means to be a good mom and rediscover her own carnal desires. So, set in the more conservative suburbs of Seattle lives Anna. She is an accountant. She is conservative. She is the poster child of the just say no generation, okay? And she has no room for a love life, which is in direct opposition to her free love hippie parents and even her 7th grade son who uses a wheelchair but has dreams of being a stand-up comic. That's his opener. No one I know can get Anna to cut loose. But in the pilot, on her 40th birthday, she loses her job. And her parents say, hey, look, why don't you take over the family cleaning business to help out? Which leads to the confession, they sold that business a couple years ago and invested in Blue Oasis, a swingers club. Well, Anna's gobsmacked. Like, why did you lie to me? What is this club? And I better take a look, it's profitable. So she meets some of the employees, like the Russian head of custodial services who carries a black light in her cleaning caddy, and a millennial triad who bring the drama every week to the club, and then the restaurateur, Chris, who trades catering for a free membership, but he's never found the right person to go behind the blue door, which becomes Anna's eventual love interest. She gives it a temp try, it becomes a new lifestyle. So for me, Blue Oasis is a new kind of sex-positive show that I believe can bring mainstream America into this world because they're going to experience it alongside Anna's deep reservations, her curiosities, and her eventual awakening. Because television tends to make fun of alternative lifestyles, right? They're the butt of the joke. No pun intended. And I don't want that. I think that Blue Oasis will never do that. The comedy comes from the situations Anna faces each week as she tries to navigate her team, to help her poor son and his raging hormones, keep the very conservative city council at bay, and make sure she never sees her parents in the playroom. Because, like Cheers, sometimes you just want to go where everybody knows your name. And at Blue Oasis, they're always glad you came. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we can just start out with whoever would like to go first on the panel.
Hi.
Yeah.
It was great. This has been such a release. Yeah.
I guess is it on? Hello. What a great world. I love the characters, and I can sort of see all the stuff. I have a big question, though.
Sure.
And that is, what's the main character's name again?
Anna.
Anna. What is she trying to overcome? What is her flaw? What creates the? I mean, I get the sort of external kind of conflict, but what is she as a character trying to overcome in this that creates stories? If I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh, I want 100 episodes out of this. How do I get there in terms of this being a story engine?
Well, one of the things about that you don't have time in a 3-minute pitch to say is that Anna had a very limited sex life. The first person she had sex with, she got pregnant. That's her son. He didn't stick around. So
she had sex with her son?
No, she with the father of her son, and and he also uses a wheelchair. So there's extra needs for that child, and so she's just shut down sexually. So that's part of what I see as her journey, that she gets thrust into this situation. Every verb is so sexual. She gets moved into this area and to also pay her bills. She's out of work. She can't find work. And so she's sort of forced to run a business that she finds morally difficult, but also titillating. So that's sort of the baby steps that she goes
Can I ask
through.
one more question?
Yeah.
So what is sort of the dramatic irony, and is there a secret? I mean, she's doing this. Is she keeping this from? If her parents are familiar, who's?
Well, it's her parents' business.
Right.
So yeah.
So is there something that's creating some kind of suspense for the whole audience?
I think in season 1, I am interested in her trying to keep this from her son, and not having a lot of success with that, because just eventually it starts to come out. And honestly, he's probably not going to be that surprised anyway. So that's a great question,
Cool.
but that's
Okay,
the first
great.
thing. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
I'm wondering about keeping the parents involved in the story. I'm wondering if it would increase the stakes for our character if the parents completely disappear and they have left this to her and she's stuck with it, because she's going to get her opposition from other people, her parents aren't going to be in a dramatic conflict with her as much. I mean, it's just kind of seems like there's one scene. You never told me about this club. Well, we didn't want to tell you about it. And then where else can you go? So maybe, you know, she's out of work. Her parents somehow have been killed, and she gets the club. And, you know, the lawyer sits her down and says, here's the club, and here are the keys, and now she discovers it for herself rather than being given a gentle introduction.
Okay, yeah, I can kill him. That's easy. Yeah. They're dead. Yep.
I literally, his note, it was the note that I was going to give, which is that, you know, who she is when we meet her, you know, what is this place the answer, what is it answering that she needs in her life? How is it bringing also conflict to her life? What community is she part of, whereby gaining this club would endanger her standing in? What are the things that are at risk? What makes her such an unlikely person to be running this place? And then once she runs it, what does she have to fight to keep it open? Is there a councilman? Are there the people is there a community from which she is? Maybe it's a religious community who actually now are the people trying to shut down the very thing. So what is her identity when we meet her? Because the more she is here and the more this is in conflict with who she is as a person, but it's also the answer to who she needs to be, the better it's going to be. You know, especially somebody who is conscious of how she's seen and perceived by the world, because going to a sex club is something where you have to have very little inhibition and not really care about all the things that she cares about. And especially if she's a woman who is very different from her parents. If this represents, as Stu was saying, the heart of what her parents believed, and so for her taking it on is also her coming to peace with accepting who her parents were, you know.
That's great, thank you.
While I agree with what everybody is saying, that was a great fucking pitch, and I think that needs to be said.
Thank you.
You really did a great job with that pitch, just in regards to your energy, your passion. You were fun. We were all into it. Okay. Sure, we could pick things apart and blah, 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 but if like you came into my office and you pitched that, and I might say, well, yeah, you know, we could do this and we could do that and we could do that. But I would still think this is somebody that I might want to do that stuff.
I'm going to cry.
With.
You started with a personal story.
Yes, exactly.
Which made you the right person to tell the story.
Correct. And then at the end, you sort of told us why it was important, why this story was important for this time as well. So I thought it was textbook. And then again, you did such a good job. Yeah, so just wanted to say that. I'm not gonna be positive anymore. I'm not gonna let anybody down. That's it. That's it.
I was just going to say, I think you pretty much said what I was going to say, Chris, and leaning on everything that they said, I felt like your passion for your project was just really palpable, and you did hit all the right marks, and I agree. I thought the opening, the closing, the middle, it all kind of tied together, and you really did do a very good job. So I appreciate that about it. The only thing I wanted to lean into and say on top of that is that I wanted to know a little bit more about the conflict of your main character, and about who she was as a woman, and you know whether it maybe the conflict between her and her parents is that she's very conservative and they're very into the swinging club. It's that can also bring a lot of humor to the story and could make a really interesting dynamic.
So build the protagonist story a little bit. Maybe sacrifice some other things when you only have 3 minutes to dig into the protagonist.
Yeah, okay. I think your main character is really key to your whole story. So
okay,
that's all I wanted to say.
That's awesome.
So,
Thank
good
you
job.
Guys so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, where's my sheet? We have Ginger Rex coming up. Her project is Hope is Not a Plan, and it is a feature.
Hope is not a plan.
Yes.
Action adventure feature. My name is Ginger Rex, and I'm grateful to all of you for this opportunity. Thank you. This is, you've been up to the Farmington area, Four Corners area. You know that those high rocky bluffs turn golden in the sunset, and our entire landscape is dotted with gas and oil rigs. And the protagonist, Alan Davis, works on these gas and oil rigs. And his lovely wife, Anna, who is everything good, pure, and lovely in this world, grew up on the nearby Navajo Nation. They have 2 sons, one younger, one older, and they play the lottery every week. And this particular week, they win really, really big, and that makes them a target. The cartel snatches Anna and their young son from their home, and Alan works feverishly and quickly to amass all the cash required to pay this ransom, and he pays it. But a dirty FBI agent screws him over, and Anna and her son are murdered. Alan is shattered, and he stands at their funeral, pouring rain, with funeral guests rushing off for cover, and he stands in solidarity with his brother and his surviving son, and they vow, let's kill him. Let's kill them all. And the story takes a fast pace and a sharp turn down to Mexico to Juarez, and they climb the ladder of cartel hell down to Cabo San Lucas, where they come face to face with an El Chapo-like character. And the story finally culminates on the beach with the antagonist, Tiburon, which means shark in English, on his knees in the dark, surrounded by Alan's men, red flashlights, M4s, and Alan gets to confront him. Did you kill my wife and son? Tiburon only smirks, and he executes justice. Now, Alan Davis is a really challenging character for any skilled actor to play. He really morphs from a very simple family man to a flawed assassin. He makes a lot of mistakes along the way. By the end, he is a steely-eyed, cold-blooded apex killer. And I'm so grateful to Angel Magana, who is the author of this novel, 10 Years in the Making, for allowing me to adapt this into a screenplay. And over the past year of doing so, I have really had to come to terms with why am I so attached to Alan and Anna? And it is because I share their wound. I was brutally beaten and nearly murdered by a home intruder as a teenager. And the FBI worked for many years to try to bring me justice, and about 10 years ago, they determined that was not going to be possible. And so I had to ask myself, if I had unlimited resources and nothing left to lose, would I seek this kind of justice? And that's a hard question to ask yourself, and I came to the conclusion, no. Because as we all know, that's what movies are for, right? What a privilege to be filmmakers, and we bring these people and these communities that are not normally seen on the big screen, and these fantasies to the big screen. So even if they say, and they will, that the book was better, I don't care, because we get to make movies. So thank you. I appreciate your time. He said he wasn't going to say anything nice. Don't give him the mic.
Well, you know, it's like, okay, she just aired some very painful stuff. Yeah, and now I have to tear your pitch apart. So,
Bonnie was so nice, didn't you?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So I think what I found interesting was that its strength, the strength of the pitch was also its weakness, which was its brevity. You told us the story, right? And you kind of went through it very, very quickly, which I was very grateful for, actually, because we can hear those stories and writers get too lost in the weeds and we don't know what anybody's talking about. And but you get to the end, right, and you describe it for us, but there just wasn't, for me, there was not enough setup for me to really even feel the emotionality of that scene. You just kind of blew through it and sort of got to that final moment, which maybe for you as the writer is very important, very cathartic, but as the listener, it sort of fell flat for me. And then just overall, there wasn't much of a hook in this. I mean, it feels like everything else that I've ever seen, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, what's different? What's different here than some other revenge scenario? And so for me, I think your pitch was fine, but just without a hook, it didn't win me over.
So I hear you, and I think that what for me makes it different from, there's so many action adventure films, and I think the stars of those are always the same people. So this has a different community and different people that get to take the center stage in an action adventure film, and he's terrible at it. There's so many mistakes through it, and I didn't magnify that part of it, but that for me is what is different, because I agree, I've seen a lot of action adventure films.
Right, but but we've seen stories like, if you've ever read the novel for Death Wish, he's really not a Charles Bronson character. In fact, it was Jack Lemmon who was originally cast. And then when they redid that when they just remade the movie, I think. Well, something, I actually read an earlier draft of the script where he's a doctor and his wife gets murdered and he doesn't know anything about any of this stuff, and he has to train himself to become a killer, in a sense. He actually goes out into the streets and insults thugs and gets the shit beat out of him. And he does that purposefully to toughen himself up. So I've seen this kind of stuff a million times because I read 1,000 scripts. And so when I hear this kind of story, I'm listening for the hook. What makes this different from the other 1,000 revenge scenarios? And while it might feel different for you because you haven't read as many scripts as I have, but yet I'm the guy who's judging, and I don't mean here, I mean like out in the real world. And so for me, this would be a pass, just if it came in. But I think sort of as a pitch, it was good. Yeah, you did a good job.
My students are going to know what I'm going to talk about now, because this is your paint box. What you experienced, this is what I was more interested in what happened to you, forgive me, as a selfish storyteller, than the fictionalized version of it. I want to know how, you're not writing John Wick 7 or something like that, but I am more interested in a young teenager who experiences this and then has to go back to high school. I mean, I know that's a completely different kind of story, but that's back to dramatic irony. How do you go to prom? How do you lose your virginity? How do you do all the things that we all sort of want high school to be after this kind of violence? That to me, and this is a taste thing, I find that more compelling. And back to the John Wick thing, John Wick works, because of the dog, because you can smell that dog. But that motivates how many other things, and he has this backstory that sort of makes all those scenes work, and you're just waiting for him to get this revenge. And I have to say, there's kind of an implausibility to this, because the cartel, how on earth does anybody stand up to the cartel? Much less, just somebody like one of us. It almost seems insurmountable. And I think in Robert McKee's book, you have to have a proactive character, but their goal has to be believable. And in a sense, I find this not believable.
So I have a question. Do you recommend, if someone is or writing their first screenplay, which, this was during COVID, would you recommend starting from a novel? And I read that, and I thought that was one of the ways to begin.
I'm not an executive, but executives love material because they can hold it in their hand. Say, oh, IP. Yeah, IP. They like intellectual property. It's we got the comic book. Oh, we got the graphic novel.
But they like successful.
Yes.
IP.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So if the book sold 3 copies, that's not the IP.
Yeah. If it's a remainder, the cover's ripped off and it's sitting in the, probably not.
One of the things, not about the pitch, but one of the things that makes a pitch successful is that somehow in the pitch, the person listening realizes the person who's pitching is compelled to tell the story and is the right person to tell the story. If you were to take Matt's suggestion and start off a pitch with just simply, I was brutally beaten as a teenager, and nothing happened legally with it, and it got my mind thinking, and I've been dwelling about it all these years. Was there another path that I could have taken? And here is that story. Now I'm hooked. Now I'm hooked.
I have written that story.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so yes, adapting a book is a good place to start. Adapting a better book would be a better place to start. A book that gave you a unique idea. And yes, about the dog, I worked with the man who was the creative executive, and he got that script to take home. And he was reading it in bed, and he got to the place. They killed the dog. And he knew from that moment that he had to make that movie. But if you say, that was the hook. This was all about, so I think starting from the personal place and expanding that and adapting what she would do, and Matt's suggestion and Chris's suggestions about how does this person resume a normal life? Does she want to resume a normal? You've got a great beginning of a movie there, and I hope you get a chance to develop.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, I think what I heard the most, and I think is the most important, for example, this pitch that I'm going out with is a little bit of a revenge thing. It's about a woman whose daughter dies because of chemicals that were in the ground, and so later on she goes on a revenge when the chemicals return. So the most important thing, as they were discussing, was to find not only a personal in on it, but something that's relatable. For when you started pitching and said lottery, I instantly withdrew because it's such an experience that's so foreign to most people, that it's such a specialized thing that when you think of lottery and then you're weighing it with just the simple death of a dog, where everybody is like, okay, yeah, we're going to kill everybody because that dog was so damn cute, right? So, I love the idea that you can find a personal angle on their revenge and making it as relatable as possible to people's experience. Because what was being suggested to you is, what if you had to do everything a normal kid would have to do? The only difference is you were dealing with the pain and the anger and the trauma of that event, but you have to put the mask. And what happens when you can no longer wear that mask? And you have to do something about it. And who's going to listen to you? Because no one's going to listen to you, so you have to do it yourself. And you have your friends, and you have your cast of characters who are going to help bring that person down, because that person also belongs to someplace very powerful. So that personalization of it, but also it has to relate. People have to be drawn in and relate to that character in simple ways sometimes. And it feels like somebody's normal life had a bomb just dropped on it. And there's nothing like lotteries. It's just a normal person who then has to take something into their own hands. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had really think that Stu hit on something about the personal. I think when you lead with the personal connection to the material and why it is so important to you to tell it, I think that really ropes people in almost immediately to you, because then they're relating to you as a human being who has feelings and emotions and passion, and not just someone who's up there pitching a story idea.
Yeah, and by the way, forget the book for a second. People don't need a book to be a bestseller if you're writing a story that's based on your life, based on a real event, because that is also something that's extremely attractive to the market, in the sense of this is inspired by real events. Even though it's not, you can say inspired by, because it's based on something that maybe, and even though your journey to try to bring justice, as you said, and very recently with the FBI, this could also mirror in some ways thematically your own journey.
Absolutely, and because you're a woman who has gone through a traumatic experience, I mean, there is a lot of that right now that women are really clamoring for some sort of validation, hope, things. I love your title, by the way, because I believe, I understand that title, hope is not a plan. But I do think that you should lean into that. It gives you a lot of strength, and I think there is that collective female energy right now around trauma and what trauma women have experienced that really would help you in developing and selling your story and getting it out to a marketplace that would embrace it.
Thank you, Karen.
I mentioned a movie earlier today called Promising Young Woman, and which has an element of, it's like a revenge scenario. But like, that's what you're up against, you know? And, like, that has a really good hook to the character, and that's what you're up against. So, like, when I'm hearing pitches or I'm reading scripts, your stuff has to be as good as that. It really does. It has to be as good as that. You know, there's no minor leagues, you know? It's not like, oh, well, you know, she's so sweet, we'll buy her script. That's not the way it works.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Okay. So before we have our next pitch finalist come up, I just want to let you all know it is, obviously it's kind of warm in here. They are working on the AC, so hopefully we can resolve that, but it kind of is what it is. We got to roll with the flow a little bit, so hopefully you're not totally dying. All right, so up next we have Holly Adams. Yes. Her project is No Place, and it is a feature.
That's right. Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Adams, and I make movies that dare to express what women have silently been thinking for years. Yeah, you better watch out. That's what I say. I've written, directed, and produced over 10 short films that have screened across the globe and in America, from New York City's Museum of Modern Art to Hollywood's Chinese Theater. I hail from New York City, the cinema of transgression, which was the New York underground film scene there, where I made my first movie on Super 8 film. Yeah, I'm dating myself. Anyway. You know, I experienced abandonment and loss from a very young age, like many of us. But I've really grown to learn that the human heart and spirit are resilient and have an infinite capacity for love, and that there is always hope, even in our darkest hours, just like my main characters learn in my first feature film, No Place, a road picture drama where Badlands meets the Wizard of Oz. He's got a car but no gas, she's got cash and needs a ride. Two desperate teens flee their traumatic past, trying to outrun the law until they discover that the home they seek is within each other. After enduring years of abuse at his hands, 15-year-old Mary kills her father, taking off with his pistol and cash. Meantime, 17-year-old Joe has just accidentally poisoned his obese mother. They chance upon each other at a gas station, Joe telling Mary he's headed to Las Vegas to make it big, though he is flat broke. Joe's got a Mickey Mantle baseball card worth enough money to buy him a fresh start. That is, if he can make it to Silver City, where they're having a baseball card convention. Joe tries to ditch Mary when he finds out she's a fugitive wanted for murder, but then realizes he needs her money if he's going to try to make it to Silver City. With Mary's uncles and the law hot on their heels, the teens disguise themselves as newlyweds to great effect. Joe discovers that he and Mary have matching birthmarks, which create a circle when her hand is placed over his heart. After hearing Mary's tragic story, Joe vows to buy themselves a home of their own one day with the money from the Mickey Mantle, but just as they embrace, Mary's Uncle Jimmy guns them down with her hand over his heart. The bullet pierces the circle, and our twins of misfortune are immediately swept into a swirling black abyss with a light at the end, growing ever bigger. A doctor's hands reach into the abyss, coaxing an infant out of a womb. The doctor slaps the baby's behind. She spits out a bullet. Joe and Mary have just been reborn as one person. No Place is a raw and edgy, fast-paced ride into eternity and back again. It gives a visual wink to the cinematic genius of Quentin Tarantino, the breathtaking landscapes of Terrence Malick, and the childlike wonder of the Wizard of Oz. Thank you so much for listening, and let's make a movie!
You want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Thank you. Right off the bat, I liked the line that you said about what women have been thinking. I'd like to have seen more how it tied into your actual story. It seemed like it was more of a couple story than a woman's story, and I think that I would lean into the strength of that if that's what you intend, which it felt like from the beginning what your intention was with the story. I also, I think it might have been Christopher that said something earlier about, or Matt, about connecting with us as the people you're pitching to, rather than maybe performing it so much. You're very enthusiastic and dramatic. It's fabulous. I'm sure you probably have some acting in your background. It's great. It's a lot of energy and a lot of that. But you're trying to get us to buy what it is you're selling. And I think that you need to maybe be a little more personal, a little more intimate with the people that you're pitching to. But the energy was great, and your passion, obviously, for the project is there. So that was my... Thank you.
I have some questions. So you said at the end that they are born as one person. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
All right, so can you just, like, in one sentence, explain that to me? What does that mean exactly?
It's reincarnation. And when I'm in love, I feel like I'm the same person as the person I'm in love with.
All right, so how does it manifest itself in the script? Is it like All of Me with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, where she's inside him? What does this look like?
So what's going on is they have dreams. They are embracing, they don't consummate this love, but they have a similar dream, and you kind of hear the mother's voice.
Yeah, but you're not answering my question.
Okay.
Which it's just a really simple question.
Okay.
Which is, you said that they are born as one person. As an audience member, what does that look like? What am I looking at?
Okay.
Am I seeing one actor?
One baby.
I'm seeing.
It's at the very end.
That was my next question.
It's
Okay,
at the
so
very
that's-
end of
it's
the
the
movie.
end of the movie.
So you've
So
seen.
we like flew through the entire second act in your pitch, and third act, and then just went right to the end. Oh, okay, all right. That was a little confusing to me.
I have a much longer pitch, but.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure.
So.
I feel certain that you do. I would just say, sort of clinically, you called it a road pick drama. At least that was what I wrote down. But yet, when you pitched it, it seemed like it had a lot more frivolity to it. And I don't know if that was just your personality or if that was the personality of the pitch. But you don't want to confuse them. So, like, people were enjoying it and they were laughing sometimes. And I was like, so is this like a dramedy? Is there comedy in here? So you don't want to confuse us.
Yes, there's some of that because they have these quirky characters along the road and they learn about, both of them have left terrible home lives and what they really want is home. And so, it's a dark drama.
Oh, it's
dark comedy.
so dark.
Dark comedy.
Oh, okay. Now it's a dark comedy.
Well, I mean,
it is important to get this straight, right?
Okay.
You got to get it straight, like right off the bat. You cannot hedge on the genre. Really, really important.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a small structural thing. You get into the room to pitch having already given those credentials.
Oh, okay.
You don't get into the room and need to introduce yourself quite that way. I think the note about you were performing the pitch is extremely important. It is not a performance for you. It is a presentation of the concept and the story structure. I don't know that you had a really defined hook in your storytelling. You have a couple of characters who are both coming from the same place, and then part of your story point is they not only wind up in the same place, but they become the same person, which really, as a concept, isn't laid in through your pitch at all, that there's a whole reincarnation thing. I would take a look at 2 movies, obviously Bonnie and Clyde, actually 3 movies, Bonnie and Clyde, Thelma and Louise, and a really extremely good movie, Pretty Poison, with Anthony, Tuesday Weld. Yeah, it's kind of what you want, but in order for the scenes to work, your 2 characters need to come from different places, not both having killed a parent, because then what's their conflict? Hi, I killed my mom. Oh, I killed my dad. Let's go. So it's, please take a look at that structure. I think it's a bit muddled.
I think look at because I always say this, who these characters, I don't know who these characters are in terms of how they're broken and how they're trying to fix that. And in terms of your theme, like the end of the second act, what is that discovery that they make that sort of, that just devastates them in terms of what they're trying to, when we had that little thing, we were talking about the algorithm of emotion, of like, who is this person, what's their problem, what do they want, what do they do, what do they expect, and what actually happens. And I don't know where I am. I mean, road trips are hard to pitch, but if you think about even, Bonnie and Clyde, you understand who those people are from the very big Badlands. You understand who he is and who she is and what they're trying to build together. And there's this betrayal. What would you say is the betrayal at the end of the second act in this piece? 3/4 of the way through. What takes them as far away from what they want as possible? And what do they want?
So they meet these motel owners who teach them that there's no place like home. Like that's what they're searching for.
So they're trying to create a home for themselves.
But they don't know that yet because they're so disillusioned about how bad home is.
Let me pause you just for a second. If they don't know, I'm in the audience and I don't know who to root for or how to root.
They know it, but like it is so ugly in their minds that seeing a beautiful couple in a beautiful home, makes them realize it's possible for them. And,
well, but I mean, just
they
think
try
about,
to kill those
like
people.
any kind of relationship. Like if I'm trying to build, even in my marriage, we came from difficult parenting kind of stuff. And we came together and said, okay, we're not going to do that. A lot of people decide to do that. And we were like, okay, we're going to be good people to one another. And every relationship gets to this place where, wow, I fucked up bad. I'm not the person I thought I was. You betray one another. You just do. And that's a dramatic structure. If these two people are like, oh, we're going to be a family, and then they realize, oh my God, it's hard to be with somebody. It's hard to be selfless in a relationship. It's hard to give to and they break up. Then you've got I know what they want. We're trying to build something together, and then they fail at it. But that's a human story.
So they start there. They start betraying each other. They start. So I didn't say that in the pitch, and I could definitely.
I mean, if it's more of a story, yeah, because that's where the emotion. That's your job is to find the emotion.
Okay.
And it's not. And again, road trips are real hard to do because they're episodic. So it's one thing after another, not one thing because of another.
And you have to have a very strong through line in the road picture, which this does not.
I'm sorry, real quick. Thelma and Louise, right? You know who those people are. You know what they're dealing with. You know the choices that they have to make at the end of the second act that make the third act have to happen. And when that resolution happens at the end of Thelma and Louise, you're broken because you wanted so much for those people that love, that whatever that kind of love, that agape, I don't know what it is.
Okay, so here's in a recap, okay, this is all good information, it's all positive, I want you to take it that way, let this be positive. The performative thing is something, I was telling them last night, I spoke to a big producer and said, don't ham it up. You weren't hamming it, but don't perform it. Just tell it. Because if you just tell it, if you perform it, you're applying a tone to it you may not intend to apply. All right, you have a really great first 15 pages. The thing about he's got one Mickey Mantle card and he's got to get to this place to sell it because there's a card convention is actually slightly original. And I actually think that's interesting. What you're talking, though, when you describe the movie, you talk about the themes of the movie opposed to what's happening. You talk about the things that you're feeling about it opposed to the experiences the characters are experiencing and the plot that they're running into. Example, let's say this was a guy from one part of the town and a girl from another part of the town, okay? One of them kills a parent. Maybe comes from a wealthy family. Her father's the mayor. He comes from the other side of the tracks. All he's got is this one thing. And when they go on the road, people from both sides, different people, Maybe on one side it's law enforcement, and maybe it's a hired detective. On the other side, maybe it's a gang, because he comes from a real rough place full of meth and all the people that he maybe killed somebody that was important, even though it was father. So you have people chasing them, right? So look for the engine of what is chasing them, and then try to figure out what it is they're going after. So when he says, I got to get to Vegas, because in Vegas there's a card collection, and there's the king of all baseball cards. His name is Ba 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 Ba, right? And enter John Goodman, and they go to his suite, and they go to the suite, and he's got this one thing. But are they going to try to say, oh my God, this is like finding a unicorn? And they try to steal it from these kids, and that starts another end. And now these people, these card collecting vigilantes, you didn't never know that the card collectors had a whole vigilantes, are now after them. You see, the road trip has to build and build and build. So think in those chapters and think about the personal lives. I think Stu's point's correct. They should come from different places. The people who are looking for them should have something very different invested in them, and they should be after them for different reasons, but certainly after them, And those people who are after them are characters as well. There are villains and so on. And they keep collecting people who are after them until at the end it's them, and then there's an army of people that they have brought with them, and it's just them against everybody,
All right. Thank you.
One
One quick comment. Yeah, go ahead.
One final note on it. The story will work insofar as that we know those characters are real and the situation are real. I would take a look at the bullet-spitting baby element again. It's not necessary for your story at all.
Okay. Thank
in
you.
my opinion.
It's a beautiful thematic.
All right. Thank you, Holly. Up next, we have Maya Tipton. Her project is Alumari. And it's an Alumari. Alumari. Okay. And it is an episodic.
I'm going to be the slow kid in class. I'm just going to read it.
And if you don't mind, we will stop. Just if you could use the mic because of this recording. Yeah, if you don't mind. I know it's for the recording. Thanks. We can start the clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hello, I am Maya Tipton, and this is the story of Alumari. In 1995, I learned of a very old Italian folk song telling the tale of a group of women who were about to be arrested for the practice of witchcraft. They meet at dawn on the seashore. They join hands, and singing Alumari, meaning into the sea, they walk into the water to drown. Their sacrifice not only enables them to escape the nightmare of persecution, but it also saves their families and their friends who would be at great risk because of their association with a convicted witch. That 500-year-old song inspires this historical dramatic series. Set in the ancient seaside town of Sorrento, at the height of the Renaissance, one would think this world would be utterly alien to our own. And yet, it is tragically relevant, also relevant, and relevant. It's kind of what's going on here, people, especially given recent events regarding women's reproductive rights. And now the story. Chiara Pagani is a midwife healer. She lives quietly with her husband, Niccolò, an artist, surrounded by their family and a close circle of her childhood friends, known as the 12. While life appears to be peaceful, Chiara still suffers the trauma of a deadly witch persecution which took place 18 years earlier, in which she was entangled along with her two sisters. The youngest, raped by the Lord Governor, dies shortly after giving birth in prison, and the baby, Simonetta, is secretly adopted by Chiara's surviving sister, Caterina. Despite the adoptive parents' opposition,
Chiara secretly takes her niece as her protege. And when Simonetta falls in forbidden love with Francesco, the Lord Governor's assistant, the secrets begin to multiply. Suddenly, and with Saxon authorities in hot pursuit, Chiara's closest friend, Anna, arrives with her daughter, fleeing from Bamberg, where they had been sentenced to death for witchcraft. As the Saxon Prince Bishop pressures the Sorrentine Lord Governor to help recapture the escapees, Chiara and her uncle, a Franciscan friar, hide the fugitives in his monastery, planning an escape by sea. But a deceitful priest informs the authorities, and rather than face the horrors of recapture, Anna chooses drowning along with her daughter. Infuriated at the loss of their prey, the Saxons demand an inquisition, and witch fever takes hold. With the fires lit, Chiara and the 12 desperately search for an escape. But every avenue proves to be a dead end. And finally, there's only one way left: Alumari, into the sea. Thank you.
You did it. I did it. Is this a limited series? What is this?
It could be.
So what do you? Where do you see this landing? What sort of, is this a stars? They love their historical kind of, bad women. Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like a little mini Game of Thrones.
So it is a limited series. It's like 7-10 episodes or something like that. I have some big questions in terms of, I was a little shaky in terms of following whose story it is. It's a lot. I mean, I love I can sort of see the art direction, but who's the protagonist, and would you kind of walk me through her
Sure.
journey real quick?
It's only 500 pages.
I'm
sure we have time.
Yeah.
So far.
Your script is 500 pages?
It is.
You have a script?
I do have a script.
500
It's a big fat script.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
So walk us through the arc of the covenant of
That's
the
a different
500
movie.
pages in terms of what is it? Who?
So the protagonist is Chiara Pagani, and she is living at a time when
What year is this? I'm sorry.
1503
Okay.
CE.
You don't want him to do this all over again.
I'm trying to understand the story.
You guys got time for 500 pages, right? So
Listening? Yes. That's a good
come on,
point.
boys, be nice.
And that is my point. Is like
Yes.
I got lost.
Yes.
But that's because she told the story. You told the story instead of pitching the story.
Yeah.
There's a difference,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me more.
And
about
it's not a matter of the reading. It's like, tell me a story. It's story time. Set the campfire, fluff my pillow, get me ready for this. Tell me a story so I fall in love with you.
Maybe this is a good actually opportunity. Quick redo. Just tell us don't set the time. It's about a mom, and she wakes up and the kid's brought. Just give us just tell us what it is.
Pitch it to us, and without any notes, what it is.
Oh boy, I was hoping for
It
this.
doesn't have to be long. It's literally just give us the quick pitch. Elevator pitch.
Chiara Pagani is a mother. She's a midwife. She's a healer. She lives in Sorrento during a time when there is enormous conflict going on in all of the European world, which to them was pretty much the world. She has tried to put her life back together after having been persecuted in a witch persecution, which murdered her sister and destroyed one of her other sisters. She has been living in denial. And little by little, she's put her life back together, and now here, the inciting incident comes. Her closest friend comes fleeing for her life along with her young daughter, with the Saxon authorities hot on their heels, intent on making an example of them. And so everything falls apart for her. She can no longer deny that she is living in a patriarchal world and that she has a very clear responsibility to, if need be, die for what she believes in.
So what does she do? Denial is not a word I want to hear in a pitch because it doesn't give you scenes, it doesn't give you stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is
It's internal, right?
Yeah.
It's an internal process.
So
Correct.
What is she doing? What is she? I get the art direction, but what is she doing to rectify her situation? What can she do to rectify her situation?
What she can do is to defend and support women that are now being actively persecuted, and to give them an escape.
And what does that look like? I mean, is she ferrying? Is she, Harriet Tubman of witchcraft? Or,
Oh, no.
you know what I mean?
No insulting.
Does she have an underground rail? How is she
Mhm.
supporting these women? And there's a whole sort
Yeah.
of,
She,
socioeconomic thing about what witchcraft meant and why women
Right.
were persecuted.
right.
What is she doing about that? How can she stand up for herself?
She is taking her friend to her uncle, who is a Franciscan friar, and they are hiding her friend and her daughter in the monastery until they are able to plan an escape by sea. And it's very convoluted, but that, because there's so many different levels going on. There's the,
And I'm sure novelistically, because I can just watch people behave, but what can she do that creates conflict in this story? Hiding is not story. Escape is, that's certainly one of the 36 dramatic situations, but it's kind of one scene which you're like,
Can I interject something here really quickly? Because I think there's something about your main character that I feel is very strong, that I would almost say is a juxtaposition to The Handmaid's Tale, which is the fact that she's a midwife.
Bingo.
Because it was very much in that time frame, something healing and midwifery and all of those types of female attributes that were utilized in those dark ages was very much used against women to convict them as witches. And I feel like you have that vehicle of her having this community of women that she has performed those services for, which has gotten her into trouble, which gets them into trouble, which then creates this sort of snowball effect of why they need to flee the persecution. I think the imagery that you have in that I think is beautiful imagery of the women going into the water, I think, but it is also very symbolic of rebirth and the regeneration and the birthing of children and the being in the water and all of those things. I think I feel like that got skipped over a little bit, and you just put it as a title of who she is instead of really making that intrinsic to her character. And I think it's such a strong attribute and so interwoven in everything that was going on in those time frames in Europe and and the Americas and other things that I think is something that you might want to really consider leaning into as a vehicle for all of these things that they've all been talking about.
It's like, I could feel your emotion. I just wanted to say that, right? Your emotion really came through. I felt
That's a good thing.
Goosebumps.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it
thank
was
you for
real.
that.
is there a crucible pulled inside out like a sock? Because the crucible is like, it's this women-centric thing, but it's about John Proctor. Is that, can you tell the women's point of view? Do you know in terms of how packed that story is and how emotional? And it's about a guy that cheats on his wife, but yet it's the same witch trial. So it's Arthur Miller.
Yeah.
That's execution to man.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
In
do.
terms of what is the smaller story of this woman trying to overcome the society that she lives in?
Right.
Because she's a midwife, and that's something that men were freaked out about.
Yeah.
So she must
Oh,
be,
yeah.
when women had power, well, you're a witch.
Yeah. Stu, did you want to go ahead? I know you wanted.
Well, all good points. Again, in terms of the technique of the pitch, you have something, you have a gem in there that you really should shine up a little bit, which is, and I'm pretending I'm you here, 10 years ago, I heard the most beautiful folk song. And I didn't know what it was because it was in Italian. And I found out, and there was a story about these women. And I'd like to tell one of those stories. Now that's a kind of a gentler way in it. There's another way in it too, which is that between 1300 and 1500, they estimate about 1 million to 2 million women were burned at the stake as witches in Central Europe. And okay? So
And way more cats.
and right. So and if you started with that statistic and said this was a war against women, and here is the story of one of them.
That's a good title.
Now I've
That's
got
excellent.
I've got the hook. And then there is a difference between telling the story and, as Chris is pointing out, doing the pitch, because you need to get more, not this event, this event, this event, this event, but this is the story of how she was coming from, a naturalism and a tradition of healing, and it was turned against them, and she goes, again, you see more theme than beats. And in a story this sprawling, that's going to be essential. The other thing is you've got 500 pages. You've got at least 10 episodes. So just be aware that whoever you're going to be giving this to is going to be making an investment of $100 million or more in order to make it. So what you really want is the most compelling kind of universal story that you could possibly have here.
Yeah, and I'll end this with saying that to remember that in every pitch, you are pitching your character, your lead, this person who it doesn't matter even what the plot is. I'm so invested in them, I want to come back for episode 2. This is a journey I want to take. What's interesting about your idea is this is a person who is a woman who was persecuted for being a witch but survived it. She kind of like dealt with that. I mean, we hear about the women who burn, but not the women who almost burn, went through all the trial, was dunked in the water, came out, and now is living somewhere, and it's like, shit, that's past. But then when it comes time to actually do something, who are they going to go to? Knock, knock, knock. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. That was really a nightmare, but you're the only one who understands. And that sense of her need for her knowledge and need of vengeance can be used but also focus on the kind of woman she is. And why is this woman interesting to be going on the journey? Has she gone through the witch trials? She survived it and is living in the woods out in the town and doesn't want to deal with anybody, and they come a knocking with the kid, and a little band is created. I can't do this. You're the only one who can do this, right? Because you want to believe that she has to be overcoming something to eventually vanquish the enemy, and she has to be the only person that can do it because of what she's been through, kind of thing.
All right. Thank you. Yes.
Practical advice. Yes. I don't think there's anything wrong, if you want to write 1,000 pages, if you want to write the entire series. I'm not sure that it's necessary, and I'm also not sure that it's all that wise, to be honest. I think that you could write a pilot and then maybe a second episode. But in reality, if you were to sell the show, they would attach a showrunner to you, because you're going to run a show, I'm assuming. And then the showrunner's going to probably want co-created by credit. So they're going to want to go in and do writing. They might take your 500 pages and go in a completely different direction. There's so much involved in it that I would say a pilot, maybe a second episode, and then you want to do a small little paragraph on each subsequent episode. To me, that's about as far as you need to go. If you want to go more, that's fine, but most people are not going to read 500 pages. They're going to read your pilot, and if it doesn't work for them, they're done.
All right.
Good for you for being so colorful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Tyler. Okay, last but not least, Ryan Bean, are you ready? Yeah. All right. What's that? Yeah. And Ryan's project is Young Entrepreneurs. It's an episodic.
All right.
Hello, my name is Ryan Bean, and I'm a first-year film and digital arts student at the University of New Mexico. However, I'm not originally from around here. I'm from a small town in Kansas, and the reason I'm telling you this is because it is the setting of the TV show I'm pitching for you today, and is very personal to me. I've written a lot of books and screenplays in my short... Okay. Gotcha.
All right, and we'll... Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much for telling me that. Okay. All right. I've written a lot of books and screenplays in my life, but this TV show, titled Young Entrepreneurs, is by far the one that's meant the most to me because it's the one that's been most inspired by my life. It's a high school comedy drama. I chose to write this story because during my senior year of high school, which was like 2 weeks ago, basically, I took a school store class and fell in love with it. Every day in that class felt like an episode of a TV show. I knew the story had to be told, and I'm the best person to tell it because I've lived it. The logline goes like this. Sophomore Calvin King leads a group of misfits in high school who run the school's new student-led store, the Least Funded Club. The team try to make a name for themselves and use the popularity to settle personal vendettas they have against classmates. And now the story for the whole 12-episode show goes like this. We begin in the small town of Westwick, Kansas, modern day. It's the start of summer, filled with the indescribable feeling of hope and anticipation. Best friends Calvin King and Troy Jones lay in the bed of a truck, talking about their sophomore year coming soon. It'll be the same as any other year, except the big difference is that Troy has become the sophomore class president, and Calvin was the one who directed the campaign video that got him elected. However, because he doesn't care about popularity, Calvin didn't put his name on it. We flash forward to the first day of school of their sophomore year. Calvin walks into school alone. Him and Troy hardly even acknowledge each other. The only people Troy acknowledges are his student council friends and his inseparable new girlfriend, Ivy Perez. When questions arise as to why Calvin and Troy are no longer friends, it seems like no one wants to talk about what happened during the summer that changed everything. Calvin attends his only class without Troy, entrepreneurship. This class runs the school store. There, he meets a colorful group of misfits and strangers, including street-smart Jackson Price, who has no filter, workaholic Cassidy, socially anxious Marcus, and calm and calculated Lotus, who is a mysterious new student from Hawaii. At first, the team wants nothing to do with the class until they start realizing how they keep getting undermined and overshadowed by student council. Things only get worse when Calvin sweeps them into his feud with Troy and Ivy. From there, the school store team embarks on a dire mission. Get revenge on student council by competing with them to become the most popular club in the school. However, Troy and Ivy will stop at nothing to let this happen. And the reason for that is because Ivy joined Calvin and Troy's friend group that summer, and they feel that he ruined the three-way friendship because of his romantic feelings towards Ivy. As it turns out, Calvin did have romantic feelings towards one of them, and it wasn't Ivy. As tensions are brewed, punches are thrown, and revelations are made, this group of misfits will be put through an experience like no other, which will result in an unbreakable group bond that they've never had before. Thank you.
Nice job, you know.
I feel like I just feel like I ran a race. You have a lot of great energy, which is phenomenal. And you obviously are really passionate about your story. Breathe.
Okay.
It is the one thing I would say to you, you need to breathe and breathe and breathe some more. Because I come from a family, and I myself am a very fast talker, and I had trouble following you. And we are a very rambunctious family, so I had to really pay attention to you to follow the story. And I think what breath gives you also is an opportunity to sort of lay things out a little bit more clearly, like who your characters are, why they're important, what are their challenges, what's the conflict that they're trying to overcome. And I actually kind of like the title, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of how that title really ties into who they are and what they're trying to accomplish and the challenges they're trying to overcome in school by the bonds and the arguments and the personality conflicts. And, high school stories are usually really popular.
Yeah.
There's been 1,000 of them. So I would just like to see you take a little more time with everything so that it gives you the space you need to really, really lay the story out clearly for us so that we can understand it better.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of information. Yeah. But in the log line, you said something about them settling personal vendettas, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of perked up. But then I didn't hear really any of that in the pitch. Like you didn't or if you did, it was.
It
sort
ties
of-
into the reason why they don't talk anymore, the two best friends. And that was like why I talked about that one part with the, it seems like no one wants to talk about what happened during the summer that changed everything. There's something going on there. And that's the whole audience investment. And throughout the main one at least, is figuring out what happened
Let
and
me
why.
ask you a question in one sentence. Answer this question.
Okay.
What happened in the summer?
Calvin got Troy and Avi fired from their job because they were spending a lot of time together and pushed him away from. Calvin got Troy and Ivy fired from their job because they were spending a lot of time together, pushed him away, and again, he had romantic feelings towards one of them, not Ivy. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't believe in secrets in a pitch. You
Okay.
know, like I feel like you need to tell us what we need to know.
Gotcha.
But to be honest, like if that's the big secret, boring. And, you know, I'm coming at it from an older perspective. You know, you're looking at it from a younger perspective. So I understand that, you know, as a younger person, that might be a little more shattering. But, you know, like I could think of a lot worse things that could have happened that could be much more compelling, much more dramatic, and be much more of a secret. It just feels a little anticlimactic, especially since you didn't reveal it. I was like, gee, what is the secret? What is the secret? And now you tell me, and I'm like,
Okay. Well, it does have to do a lot with like the characters, like because all these characters are byproducts of their parents, you know, like all the parents
go
are.
ahead and blame us.
Yeah. So there's a lot more. That's the thing about the story is that there, as you go throughout, there's a lot more layers that get revealed. There's like
But
literally
we
some.
understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, clearly all of us have heard a lot of pitches, right?
Okay.
So we understand that.
Gotcha.
And I think that there's a lot of stuff in here that I like, but you know, I agree 1,000% that this could have been much more streamlined. I think maybe just avoiding some of the subplots a little bit. Just stay with the through line.
Okay.
And the other thing is, you know, what I thought was compelling, and again, forgive me if I misread this, but it felt like there was a war of the clubs.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the main story.
So if it's a war of the clubs, find a character, maybe he's new to the school, and maybe this is a character who is deciding on his identity or her identity.
Yes.
And has many friend groups, and they're all pulling him in different directions, because that's what it is, you know, because there's different factions. What is it about your lead that's compelling in this environment where the clubs are all at each other? And how does he play a part in all of that so that you can create somebody who is being in a whirlwind of the cliques in some regards, you know?
Yeah.
So you want to have a character who has something to lose, also figuring out what it is about this environment that makes it interesting for him to be in that environment. Why is this kid interesting in this environment where the clubs are feuding? Which
Okay.
the general sense of feuding clubs in a high school is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when you've got a kind of a new club.
Yeah.
And this is why your title, Young Entrepreneurs, created an expectation of we're used to freaks, we're used to geeks, we're used to the athletes. Wait a second, young tycoons?
Yeah. They're all very business-minded people, which causes a lot of tension,
Right.
you know. 'Cause,
So
yeah.
I think you need to get to that core of the warring cliques.
Okay.
Also, dropping half a dozen names in the middle of your pitch, particularly at the velocity that you do it.
No, I'm from Kansas, so the setting of the TV show.
Okay, so again, the purpose of the pitch is not for you to get all of the ideas out.
Okay.
It's to get the themes out and the hook out and the compelling reason why you're the person to do that. And what's it really at stake here could be something quite fascinating about people who are idolizing Elon Musk as opposed to idolizing, Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
So, which is the last sports thing that I will ever see.
Gotcha.
But that is really, I think, what you need to do, and really slow
Okay.
down.
Gotcha.
Stay with that through line. Again, it's really about the through line. That's especially in a 3-minute pitch, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I was. Yeah.
You don't have enough
Okay.
time to get everything in. So you just stay with whoever the main character is and just stay with that story.
Okay.
I guess my big question is kind of going off of Stu. Is like, what is the hook? You know, we've all
Yeah.
been through high school. We all know how horrifying that is, because we're creative people.
Yeah.
But why are we telling this story? I kind of didn't, you did keep that secret, and I'm like, well, why are we with this guy, and what is he trying to accomplish here, and what is the conflict, quite frankly? You buried that in the pitch, and I think that's you should front load with that.
Yeah, okay, I get you. Because, like, the main thing, it's like, in the words of Joker in The Dark Knight, it's like, it's not about the money, it's about sending a message. Like, they don't care about the money. They're using the store and all that as a front, because they're all internal motivations, They're using it just as a front to get revenge on people. So it's stuff like that.
But what does that look like?
Okay. Okay, gotcha, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I was going to just add very quickly is in the beginning you said you were it kind of lends to the whole keeping a secret, is you said, I'm the right person to tell this story because I lived it. What about this is so compelling for you? Because that is interesting. What's your secret? What's your secret? Because that is something that leads you into this in a really visceral way that will get people to tune in to you for this story. So think about that too when you go back over it.
How old are you? 18.
Way to go. Yeah. Way to go.
Okay.
Get in front of, asshole like him. I wasn't going to throw myself up. Now he's going to destroy.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah.
I was going to say as well.
Mike, yeah.
So I was going to say, I see the last. The one thing that's really hard about a pitch is that you've been living with it in your brain, and you've been living with it and telling yourself and convincing yourself and falling in love with your idea. And falling in love with your idea is important, but this is a collaborative medium, whether you're doing film or you're doing TV. And the best thing you could ever do, I said this in my thing, is say things out loud, write down your treatment, have somebody read it, have somebody tell you this is an issue they're having. Because if they're having an issue, their issue is honest. They're not trying to be mean. They're saying this is a problem. Have the kind of objectivity that you can say, I can fall a little out of love with some of my idea if it's going to make it better. Because people usually want to help you. So I think that a good thing, I have writers who they write scripts and they hold them and they polish them, and after 2 years they show them to you. And if they had just shown me a treatment 2 years ago, I could have saved them all that work. And you got to get over your fear of being rejected, fear of being embarrassed, fear that someone's going to hate it, because of all of your ideas today, there was something really, really great about it. And the reality is, universally, there was also stuff that wasn't working. Not just my subjective opinion. I'm going to tell you right now, we all probably felt the same thing, which means there's an issue. So don't say, oh no, wait till I write it, they'll see my execution will prove them wrong. The reality is see objectively that you have the ability to take the note and then execute on the note and make it better, and also use it and say on, let it take you somewhere, and then and by the time you're done with that process, you'll have something good. I don't know anybody who ever gets it right out of the gate. Almost the biggest showrunners, the biggest writers, they workshop their ideas, and that's a very important thing, especially for young writers, is to take it out of your head, to fall a little out of love with it, put it over here and just say, this is a piece of business. And I got to make this piece of business as best as I can. I'm in love with it. I'm just going to monetize this. I want everyone to help me make this great. And then you can then distance yourself from it emotionally a little bit and then make the best product, the best script you can. And that's harder said than done, but it's important.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Okay. As my so great.
With a tie pin.
Your parents should be proud.
Are your parents here?
All right. Thank you all. I know that took a lot of bravery to come up here, and it was really great feedback. So thank you. Thank you all. Yes, we have, let me see the time check. 5:03, so we're actually doing well on time. Does everybody want to take a quick 5 minutes and get a little air, or do you want to keep going? All right, we'll just keep on going. Yeah, so just remember to use the mics for the recording. I know we have to pass them back and forth, but if we can just do the best with the mics that we can do. We have a mic for the audience questions, and let's go. So, Lorraine, do you have a question you want to start with, or yeah?
The writers that you all are working with, or if you write your own screenplays, do any of you use a sequencing method on that? Because it's something that I'm a Stowe writing recipient along with Kira, and sequencing was introduced to us, and what I found was it really helped determine our pitch, because the sequencing leads you through cause and effect.
Like the 8 sequences? How many?
Yeah, like the 8 sequences, exactly. And what it did for us is not only did it help inform our pilot, but it really helped inform the pitch, because we could see where the highlights of the themes and the cause and effects were that we needed to really include.
I work with writers who use that. I work with writers that use every conceivable, there's Robert McKee, there's Save the Cat, there's the mini movie method. I mean, I can go on and on and on. It's all 3-act structure, if you ask me. It really is kind of all the same. Yeah. So I say whatever works for you, especially whatever gets you through that 2nd act. Oh, God.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Question. Who is this? There was one other question. Actually, somebody else had a. Well, yeah, we'll go with here, and then there was somebody else over here after that. Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you all. That was very fascinating. I didn't know much about pitches outside of Seinfeld until now. But my question is, generally, I asked Mr. Stern about getting an agent. He said it was very necessary. Mr. Lockhart mentioned getting a manager first. Yeah, I have an award-winning short film. I've been passing scripts to producers for feedback, as Mr. Lyons knows, for a while. I guess my question is, how realistic is it to get to a pitch meeting when you're not in LA, or or have a name to yourself or anything like that? Is it kind of just like you should go out there and everyone says get to LA, but
I'll just say off the bat that LA, it doesn't really matter anymore. I really think that for the most part, the pandemic kind of put, a coffin nail in that. People Zoom all the time. Now, I do think that maybe for TV, but do you know something? Most writers' rooms are now on Zoom. So I don't know. I mean, I know so many writers who left LA. They're living all over the country now, who work in TV. And so I wouldn't, don't think that you have to move to LA. That's ridiculous. Worry about doing good work and meeting people, making contacts. Yeah, sure, if you're out in LA, maybe you can do that better, but you can reach out to people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You're here, right? All of us work in the business. So that's what you should be doing.
Cool. Well, my film plays tomorrow.
Can I add something that it's slightly different than it used to be, because there's so many things getting made now. One of my students was actually acting in the Jesse Eisenberg movie. Where did it premiere? Telluride's on Sunday. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but he was doing a great job, and Jesse Eisenberg was like, "Wow, you're really good. You're talented. What do you want to do?" And he says, "I want to be a writer." And Jesse Eisenberg said, "Well, cool. Do you have a script?"
Yeah.
Didn't have that script yet. Hasn't finished school, but he's but that's an opportunity. My students have been PAs, and the writer would be on the set, and they go, "Wow, you're really smart. And what do you want to do?" "I want to be in I want to be in a writer's room." Guess what? They were in a writer's room as the PA the next year. But there are opportunities here now that there haven't been before. So I'd say get yourself on a set, see what's learn the whole thing. Where do you want to be? And network. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's my comment.
All right.
There's my gum in my mouth.
One quick thing about...
Sorry, Josh, you want to use the mic? There you go.
One quick thing about when you talked about you have a film, a short film, did you say, that's playing? I also think I said yesterday, in my 20s especially, I didn't stop writing. I wrote script after script after script, and it wasn't really till my 6th script, to be honest with you, that really hit something. But the reality is, if you have a film, it would be also wise for you to say, you like this film? By the way, the first thing someone's going to ask you is, have you written something else? What else do you have? To put all your eggs in the basket of the baby that you've been holding on to. You should, if somebody says, I love it, oh, you love that, here's a script. You have to get out of this thought that this is the precious thing, I'm gonna buy the farm with this thing. It's gotta be you should be already so excited about your next idea. You should be writing and thinking about what your next thing is, and maybe this film was a little bit of a calling card, and now you have a script to give them. It's the idea of producing, because the reality is, people tend to assume this business isn't like any other business. That you're 22 years old and you can it's not like in a bank, you'd work up to being a manager in 5 years. And in 7, maybe by your late 30s, this is a business where you grow by doing. And you could take people in, you have a new idea, and you keep going, opposed to thinking, this is somehow my idea, and I'm in essence am entitled for this thing, I'm not saying any particular, to be the thing that launches me. This is the thing that maybe gets somebody to say, hey, who's that? And now that I've got your attention, oh, you're looking at me? Read this. Keep going with your thoughts and keep creating.
And that's exactly what a manager or an agent wants to see. They want to see that you are prolific. If you're a writer, you should probably be striving for at least 3 scripts a year. Because it's a numbers game. Number 6 for him. It's a numbers game. So the more product you have, the more likely that something will hit.
If you write 1 page a day, in 3 months you'll have a script. 1 page, that's all you got. 1 page is all you have to write every day, and you'll have an entire screenplay in just a few months. And most people will write 2 pages a day, right? Oops, all of a sudden it's 2 months, So don't, outline, prepare, and then just do it,
Great.
That actually kind of goes with my question. So it took you 6, right? Do you go now into a meeting with those 6? Would you repitch it, like with the John Hamm boomerang around, because it was a great script?
Oh, yeah, here you go.
No, the tragedy is this. I went to some old boxes, and I found scripts I'd forgotten about. And when I say forgotten about, I couldn't either pitch it to you or tell you the lead character. No, you abandon them to your experience of life. You abandon them to the process of growing. And then they come up into your consciousness sometimes, and then you usually move on from them. It doesn't mean that they're any less value. They were just part of your education. But I know I don't resuscitate very much, and usually that is because there was something about them that didn't grab onto the zeitgeist of whatever that moment was for people reading it, and there was validity in that it wasn't quite there. But so, no, I don't.
I think you really got to love the process. You got to love closing the door and making shit up. That's your job. Yes, it's the business of show, and you got to try to get yourself out there. But if it doesn't come down to you facing the keyboard and just that's your bliss, I'm not saying find something else, but that's got to be how you express yourself. Because you have no control over anything else. You have no control over people's tastes. You're going to hear no all the time. So fuck them. Just keep making shit up. Bless their hearts, but it ain't about it ain't about them. It's not about I hope invite me to your pool party when you sell your script. But the joy is just you and your imagination. That's where you get your gratification. If you win awards, that's great. If you get rich, that's great. If you got a mound of coke, that's
not so great.
Not great. Oh, sorry. They don't know anything about. Yeah, right. just right, because it's how you're built. That's, you gotta just say yes to yourself.
Kira?
So I have a question. So when do you know when it's time to know that you're ready, your project is ready? So like Lorraine and I were writing a TV pilot together, and we got this pitch down, and we're like, yes, it's ready, and then we go, and then we bomb. So we didn't bomb. We didn't bomb, but lady, we thought this is it. We got it, right? We were like so confident we had the formula down, and we weren't. So how do you kind of?
Did you see the 60 Minutes thing on Ted Lasso?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so Leslie Stahl is interviewing. Like, so when you went out with a pitch for the first time, how did it go? You watched that showrunner thing with, your pal. What's the guy that did Breaking Bad? Yeah.
Vince.
How many places did they go? 20-something places?
It got rejected by just every place in town.
Really?
Almost every place in town. Look, when it was finally finding a home at Sony, the executives, the development executives took it to the president of Sony, and they pitched the idea, and his response was, that is the single worst idea I have ever heard for a TV scene. Okay? But then he turned it around, because this is the way they play in those leagues. He said, if you guys want to do it, okay, but if it fails, you're all fired. Now that is the way the Sharks eat. So that actually happened. It was in development at FX for a year, finished script. John Landgraf turned it down. And John Landgraf is perhaps one of the 2 or 3 smartest people in the business, still regrets that he turned it down.
Yeah,
so rejection is built in. And one thing, like Alex, if you have, short movies, there's, you're not going to make a living. Nobody makes a living from a short movie. Actually, very few people are making a living from doing independent movies right now, unfortunately. Maybe that'll change. But all I can think of is that Whiplash started as a Sundance short. And when it won the award at Sundance as a short, and the backers were there, he said, this is a feature. And within a year, completed the feature and had it back as a feature at Sundance. So that's the kind of, you're banging your head against a lot of doors. The doors never usually swing wide open. You're just looking for a little crack of light, and then you pursue that. Okay. And look, take that rejection, where it bombed. Okay. Did it bomb because of itself, or did it bomb because that wasn't what they were looking for?
Okay, so a follow-up question to that. I totally agree. And as a writer, and I'm sure a lot of writers have this feeling, is like, when do you give up? Do you give up? What do you say to yourself to keep going so you do get that crack?
Fuck you, I'll show you.
I love you, Matt.
I mean, I don't say it out loud, but somewhere, I say this all the time. So, I know, but... I did? I know that was a
18-year-old, Matt.
You guys, I know. It's quite a party. Anyway, hang on just a second.
Okay.
You have to have somewhere deep inside you a white-hot conceit. I say this all the time. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to be a jerk about it. But somewhere you got to say, I can do this. I'm going to do this. I have a voice. That's it. You just keep coming back. As my dad said to me, they can beat you up, but they're going to have to do it every goddamn day.
But it's like, what nuggets do you take and which do you not throw away to further your project?
Karen,
Karen,
you want to take that?
I was just going to say, I think you have to, again, it goes back to trusting yourself, but pitching's a little bit like auditioning. You are going to get rejected 1,000 times for every one, maybe, time that you're going to get accepted, and they may still not pick up your property. So you have to have a relentless pursuit of what is your truth in your project every single day.
And also, one thing that everybody that I know who's a professional writer has, and sometimes they even pay people to have this, is somebody to talk to about it. Everybody here is a community. And if you have an idea, talk to somebody about it. Hey, will you listen? Can you add? Don't be afraid of taking someone else's. Don't be afraid of exposing yourself. Ideas are personal, and they tap into our fears and our pains and our loves and our humilities and also our shame. And sometimes those are the things that make the most interesting stories, but they won't work if they're sitting in your head unformed or struggling to figure out how I'm going to do it again. You need to use each other as your own development teams to help each other get the best product, and then you'll read the other person's script. And don't be afraid to ask someone to help you or to read something and to let me bounce this off of you. All we did today was hear these stories, and I'm going to bet that, because I heard it in the audience, that about 70% of the notes that we gave were echoed out there by people who are not in the business. They just heard you pitch and understood this is where the character wasn't working. This is where the arc was falling apart. You all can help each other. The more you have a community, the better you. And in fact, that's an interesting idea for you all to do for each other. And I think that I would look towards each other. Take each other's numbers if you don't already have it. You probably all know each other, but really use each other. And as far as rejection goes, real quickly, because I am currently on a pitch being rejected as we speak by Amazon. And so I have one interest from one place, so that might be good. But having said that, you have to depersonalize. I said it before. You have to have a way of saying, you have to fall a little bit out of love with your idea. And you have to let the world do what it wants, and then you have to be brave with it. And once it is, if it doesn't find a home, you mourn it, and then you do the next. But you give it all you can, but don't spend your life trying to nurture that one unicorn and hoping that other people will see what a miracle it is. When the reality is the miracle is that you have great ideas and you have more than one unicorns, and you should pursue as many as you can. You know, short life. Let's just keep. I'm looking at Dee out here, dear Wallace out over here. Work. I worked with Ian McKellen once, and he was telling me at one point, he's in London, right? He does radio plays, he does soap operas, he does big movies and small movies. He works, right? Just keep doing it, because that's what life's about. It's the new idea is what's hopeful about life. It's what gives you, there's always one more thought, and that keeps you going. It's what makes creativity so exciting.
Right. All right.
And who said that you bombed, by the way? I
didn't say that I bombed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't hear the word bomb. I just made that up? Yeah. No, I didn't make that up.
But we thought we had it together, but we didn't have it as together as we thought.
All right.
It's okay. It's progress.
Yeah, exactly right. And don't necessarily project some negative thoughts into the situation, because it's very possible that the executive thought that the pitch was interesting, but maybe didn't like all of it. And you're going to have to pitch a gazillion times before you hear a yes. So I pass on stuff all the time. I said this earlier, I pass on stuff all the time. It's got nothing to do. It could be a great script, but it's not right for Denzel Washington, so it's a pass. It's got nothing to do with nothing to do with you. So you don't ever read into that. It's like being an actor, right? You're too tall, you're too short, this, that. So don't even go there. Don't ever even go there. It's just, all right, this didn't work, so now we're going to move on. And then if there are things you didn't like, then you fix it. That's all.
All right. I think we have time for one quick question. I think, do you have the mic over here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, great.
My name is.
A couple? Okay.
My name is Isaac Martinez. I had a question. When in the script process, if you're working on a docu-series or a docu-feature film, such as like the upcoming feature film Blonde with Marilyn Monroe, how much research should you do before you actually get into the script writing process?
You mean a biopic, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
A biopic.
A lot.
Yes, and currently
I've done several documentaries, historical
or
docs,
or maybe none. If it's a biopic.
Well, with a biopic maybe, but I think if you're really trying to go for the historical aspect of it, I think you do need to know at least the highlights of what you're trying to capture. But I will say one of the things I find personally about docu-series or documentaries that are so fascinating is that it's not like a script where you have everything laid out. It's a very kind of fluid situation. You are going to develop more of your material as you get into shooting that property than you would have ever imagined at the scripting sort of stage as you lay out kind of your outline for a doc. I think it is one of the things that makes it kind of in some ways a little more fun. There's a lot of discovery process to that. So you have to just constantly keep researching, but you should know your topic, just like any other story. You should know that.
Yes. But it's different. Remember, a documentary is not a biopic.
I guess I should clarify.
Okay, so
it's more of a film.
Right. A biopic is ultimately it is fictional, where a documentary is nonfiction. So I'm not sure exactly where you're at, if you're talking about a biopic or you're talking about a documentary.
No, I guess like the new Alice movie that came out.
Yes, that is a biopic.
Biopic.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Having done a biopic, you know, it was the hardest film I've ever done, the film about jobs. But, you know, I always say it's so easy to fall into a discovery, this happens, that happens about the person. Look for the interesting thing, about that character that you didn't know, something that is at the heart of the person, not at the heart of the personality. Because biopics Elvis fell into that a little bit. It was very dead set on the good of the man, you know. But that, not trying to criticize it, but to try to say it's not unlike any other fiction. What is the issue the character is dealing with? What's the arc? What do they learn? Where do they come from? What can you apply to their story using the kernels of truth that you know that will tell their story in a way that's thematically interesting, that draws you into them, that lets you understand something you didn't know about them, and at the same time is very entertaining, which is complicated with the real person. But they're public figures. So you have a good amount of leeway as long as there's a little sliver of defamation, which is you have to watch out for a little bit. But anyway, it's just look for the thing you didn't know that's interesting about them.
Right.
All right. Be true to the spirit of the person, but not necessarily all the facts, because you may not know any of the facts, right? You might be able to look up some stuff, but ask Aaron Sorkin how he feels about biopics, you know?
Okay, I want to make sure we get one more question in. Does that work? Do we squeeze a quick question? We actually have this gentleman right over here as the mic, so go for it if you have a quick question. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Right. At what stage during the pitch process does the concept footage come into play?
Say that one more time.
At what point during the pitching process does the concept footage come into play?
The concept footage?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean? What is concept footage?
Or like filming a...
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sizzle reel, yes.
Okay. A sizzle reel. I don't know. There's probably a million different answers to that. You could potentially start with that. That might be a very good lead-in. I guess, I'd have to see it to maybe decide and know what the whole pitch is. Anybody have any other ideas?
Well, why are you presenting a sizzle reel? Is there something unknown about what you're talking about that you need to give somebody an idea of what it is? Are you trying to introduce a style that is going to make the pitch compelling? Remember, the whole idea of the pitch is to sell the project. So is that going to be a plus, or is somebody going to go, well, I didn't like the sizzle reel? I mean, what is it adding?
Are you pitching it as a writer-director or a writer?
I'm having my own script right now, so they're kind of wondering if I'm going to write and direct also, but just, I guess, purely...
It's a very simple answer. Writer or writer-director?
Writer-director.
Okay, fine. So then you can use a sizzle reel for that. If you're just a writer, I don't suggest a sizzle reel at all.
Because I think Stu's 100% right. What is it adding? Okay, what is it adding? But also, when people go into studios with quote-unquote sizzle reels right now, executives are expecting to see a level that is so extraordinary. When George Lucas wants to pitch a show, let me just tell you, it's really hard to compete with what they expect. The problem with sizzle reels is by the nature, is they're never going to rise to the bar of the grandness of your idea. Your imagination and all that you can sell, all the things that they're going to imagine it can be in their brain coming from your mouth is going to be so much bigger than what you could ever do by putting together some animation or some photographs that you can do in PowerPoint and or in Adobe and all that kind of stuff.
Going out with Ellen DeGeneres' company and Warner Brothers. I'm doing this like multi-generational thing, and they literally have like a cork board kind of thing showing where this is the father and this is the grandfather. You know, so they're sort of pointing it out, but it's not. It's just to sort of simplify and make sure that everybody understands who the generations are, who these characters are. But it was not any kind of a, sizzly kind of thing.
All right. Well, great final question. Thank you all to our panelists. Thank you to our panelists.